Hey guys, Dan here. If you're interested in wireless CarPlay, you may have already seen this one floating around, and that's called CarPlay2Air. I recently purchased it to make my head unit wireless, and now I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't. Let's get into it. So essentially, this is a dongle that you plug into your existing CarPlay wired unit, and it makes it wireless. It comes in two different models, one for Android-based units that don't have CarPlay already, and one for existing car manufacturers that came with CarPlay factory installed. And it's not necessarily cheap either. With the on-sale prices right now at the time of making this video, the Android unit was $130 US, and for those with a factory CarPlay model that came with their vehicle, it's up to $176 US. And a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, well, I've been using my phone wirelessly in my car for years. This is really behind the times. And you're partially right. But the thing is, CarPlay runs based on your iOS software. So rather than just throwing audio over to your system, it's actually throwing an entire operating system over to CarPlay. So now actually getting into my review. So I've had CarPlay for a couple of years now in my vehicle. I manually installed it myself in an older generation, and I wanted to make it wireless simply for the convenience of it. Doing all of my research, the one that seemed to continuously pop up over and over was CarPlay2Air. So upon first use, I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's just this little dongle that you plug into your system, and then it connects to your phone via Bluetooth. So all you do is plug it in, it shows up in Bluetooth in your settings, and if you only have one device connected to this dongle, it should automatically load on your dash. If you have two or more devices, when you hit CarPlay, it's gonna ask you which device you wanna use. It only takes a second to load, and then just like that, CarPlay's working. So over my 2 weeks of using the device, I was actually reminded of how pleasant it actually is to use your phone wirelessly in your car instead of having to plug it in every single time you get in. But then over time, I was shown a couple of significant issues that really made me just want to revert back to the wired CarPlay experience altogether. So I had 5 issues with this, and I'm going to break them all out for you. So number 1 is the UI of CarPlay. It doesn't seem like the dongle is able to recognize the actual system that you're using, and so it accommodates for all of them. And what that means essentially is that there's a hover over state on a bunch of buttons, so it'll show highlighted as if you're in a vehicle with a trackpad, and that hover over is essentially irrelevant if you're just using the touchscreen and you're not really using a cursor that goes over top of the icons. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but it is something I noticed when I'm buying nearly a $200 device. The second problem that I had was lag when connecting. So I would get into my car, I would turn it on, and it would actually take quite a while for it to recognize the device connected by Bluetooth and then turn CarPlay on. A lot of times I found it faster to just plug my phone in via the wire and just connect that way. So the third issue I had was audio quality. And this is sort of something that I expected with this device, as instead of transmitting your audio through a wire, you're doing it through Bluetooth. And through that, you can sort of expect to have a slightly lower quality experience. But more than that, I was noticing interference or skipping of tracks. It would ultimately just go silent, and then the music would come back in a few seconds. And it was also very delayed, so if I hit next track, it would take a while for it to catch up. This can also be a concern on things like turn-by-turn navigation, where it's just not as snappy as you'd need it to be. Number 4 that I noticed is that it doesn't integrate with auto dark mode. So CarPlay has the functionality to recognize when your headlights turn on, or if you have a vehicle that has a sensor, it'll determine when it's night and it'll make your display darker. And you can imagine how important this can be when driving, to not be distracted, to not be blinded by the bright light of your menus and your navigation. And I never really found a way to get this dongle to work with night mode. So I would actually have to go into settings and manually change it to dark mode as it was getting darker. Again, not a great experience if, say, you're driving down the highway at night. So the 5th incident that I had was actually toward the end, and it was fairly significant. I found that CarPlay would actually just freeze at times and wouldn't allow me to use it. I'd try tapping on the touchscreen and just nothing would work. It would be completely non-responsive. And to make matters worse, the return process wasn't easy. Upon contacting support, they said that they would require a video to prove that the device wasn't working, to which they would then try to troubleshoot the process with you. And so after I did send them that video, they then continued to troubleshoot the process with me, telling me that it could be interference with other devices, telling me that my car Wi-Fi could be part of the problem, as well as accidentally being on my home network, none of which were actually the case. So it took about a week of going back and forth with them and troubleshooting the process to finally get instructions on how to actually ship this device back to China. And at this time, they also let me know a couple of things, one of which was that shipping would not be covered by them. They also required a tracking number. And finally, upon receipt, if they found that the issues going on were not at their fault, they would issue a $25 restocking fee. So after all of this, I followed the instructions, I shipped the device back, and then I didn't hear from them for about a month. At that point, I followed up. The next day, they indicated that they did in fact receive the device and that my refund would be processed immediately. They did give me a full refund, so I didn't pay that $25 restocking fee, which indicates that it was actually their device that was causing the problem. But part of me doesn't think that this refund even would have been processed if I hadn't followed up with them. So ultimately, I thank CarPlay2Air for letting me reminisce about using wireless functions in my car. However, they have a lot of kinks to work out in order to make this device successful. All in all, I would advise people not to purchase CarPlay2Air, and it seems like wired CarPlay is really just the best option at this point, and technology needs to improve in order to enable a wireless CarPlay experience that's really clean and intuitive. But let me know what you guys think. Have you recently purchased, or are you thinking about purchasing a wireless dongle for CarPlay? Does this video actually discourage you from buying CarPlay2Air or any of their competitors? Have you found a lot of success in using wireless CarPlay, and maybe it's just me? Let me know all of that in the comments as well. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button to see more from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.